Boston. Finally we get you.
Finally you get me. It hasn't been that long.
4 or 5 months.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And this is Vernon from Mont.
Nice to meet you.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Doing well. Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And this lady would like to take a picture of the 3 of us together.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello. How are you doing? Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. Thank you.
This is our media director, Bill Wynne.
All right. Hello, Bill Wynne.
You don't have to check in.
No.
Is it possible?
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Long time.
We have so many here tonight, so what I think I'd really like to get it rolling.
Thank you for coming. Vernon and Goffstown joined with us to bring Carly here tonight, and we're going to try to bring as many candidates that we can. It's a little hard, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. We want you to be able to meet all these candidates. I'd like to thank Wes Sonner. He is
highway and New Breakers. Father in heaven, we do thank you for this opportunity to gather as a free people, to come and listen to those that would seek to guide our country and to lead our nation. We ask, Father, that you would bless each candidate as they're on the trail. We ask that you would bless them with a desire to speak always the truth. We ask that you would bless them with strength and a desire to understand our Constitution and to always obey it. And Father, we ask that you would bless them with wisdom to make wise decisions. Father, I ask that you would bless each person here. I ask that you would bless them with wisdom as well, to discern the truth and to vote appropriately, that we would have good leaders that would make good decisions for us. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
We lost a great family who are singers, and they often sing for us at our meetings, and they're so well known all over the state, I can't get them anymore. But it's the Henderson family. It consists of Brian Henderson, along with his children Jeff, Anna, Emma, Maisie, and Joan. And they also write some of the music, and I think they're going to do an original song tonight, right?
Just wanted to just a little preempt this song. This was written by my daughter Anna, the oldest back here, and it kind of parallels our own national anthem. The American national anthem is the only one that asks a question, and it says, "Say does that star-spangled banner still wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave?" And it asks each one of us today, you know, does the flag still wave? And it's really, is it over the land of the free? You know, we need to protect what we have, and it's fading fast. So we need to keep that in mind. This song is called Old Glory.
Calling to the
fact, a couple weeks ago in South Carolina, where Hillary Clinton was dodging the press, she came out of the same hotel Hillary was staying in and went out and spoke to the press, said, "I'm here with one note." Can you see Hillary Clinton?
Thank you, Tony, for that very gracious introduction, and thank you to the Henderson family for that really a wonderful prayer and a really beautiful song. And I think that song was more than beautiful, actually. I think it reminds us that we are actually at a pivotal point in our nation's history. That is why I'm running, because I think we're at a pivotal point. I think 2016 is all about the direction we want to take this country. I think 2016 is all about leadership. And I think 2016 also is all about whether or not we're going to re-engage people in the process of their government. Why do I say that last bit? Because there was recently a poll released that said that 82% of the American people now think that we have a professional political class in Washington, D.C. that is more concerned with the preservation of its power, its title, its position, its privilege, than it is with doing the people's work. In many ways, Bill and Hillary Clinton have become the personification of that professional political class, but they're not the only ones. There are a lot of people who don't vote anymore. And when you talk to those people who don't vote, it's not that they don't care. It's they think their voice doesn't count. I'm reminded that ours was intended to be a citizen government. It's what by, for, and of the people means. And I think that means, those words, by, for, and of the people, mean that we as citizens have to engage actively in the process of our democracy and the process of our government. And I also think it means that some of us, sometimes, as many of you here in New Hampshire do, some of us have to step forward and serve for a period of time. When I was a little girl, in elementary school actually, since we're here in an elementary school here in New Boston, about 8 years old, my mother one Sunday morning looked at me and said, "What you are is God's gift to you, what you make of yourself is your gift to God." I didn't feel very gifted as a young girl or as a young woman. And so those words, I remember them all my life. I still remember them every day. They seemed like a promise to me that I had given God-given gifts somewhere. And they seemed like a challenge to find them and use them. I've traveled all over the world. I started as a secretary, ended up as the chief executive of the largest technology company in the world, run charities, advised government. And I've learned in every situation I've ever been in that indeed everyone has God-given gifts. Most people have far more potential than they realize. You know perhaps that I did start out as a secretary for a 9-person real estate firm. And I didn't have a plan to become a CEO, but 2 men in that 9-person real estate firm came up to my desk one day and said, "We've been watching you. We think you could do more than type and file. Do you want to know what we do?" That was my introduction to business. They took a chance on me. They saw possibilities in me. And because they saw possibilities in me, I saw possibilities in myself. I can tell you about a charity I ran as chairman until I declared my candidacy for the presidency, called Opportunity International. We're the largest private microfinance organization in the world. We've lent $8 billion, $150 at a time. We've lifted millions of people out of poverty, and I have met people in destitute and desperate circumstances all over the world. And yet, every person has God-given gifts, and when we've given someone $150 of tools and training and support, and told them you can build a life of dignity and purpose and meaning, and we're going to help you do that, those gifts come out. Why am I talking about God-given gifts? Because people all over the world have them, and yet in this country, here, more things have been more possible for more people from more places than anywhere else on the planet. Why is that? It's true, I think, here, that more people have seen more possibilities in their lives because our founders knew what my mother taught me. Our founders knew that everybody has God-given gifts. Our founders knew that everyone has potential. And so they built a nation on this amazing idea. It was radical at the time, it is visionary still. And the idea is that here, you have the right to find and use your God-given gifts. You have the right to fulfill your potential. That's what our founders meant when they said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they said, and this was the radical part, that right to fulfill your potential comes from God and should not be taken away by man or government. And that's why my story is only possible here. It's only possible here to start out typing and filing in a 9-person real estate firm, go on to become the chief executive of the largest technology company in the world, and run for the presidency of the United States. That's only possible here. And yet, as the song reminds us, the people of America are disquieted. The people of New Hampshire are disquieted. I feel it every time I speak with you. I think Americans are disquieted because, in addition to seeing that the political process isn't working for them anymore, I think people are afraid we're losing something now. And I think they believe we're missing something. I think what people are afraid we're losing is the sense of limitless possibility that has always defined this nation. This nation always was defined by limitless possibility. If something were worth doing, we knew as a nation we would do it. If it were hard to do, even better, we'd figure out how to do it. We knew that our own lives were filled with possibilities that came with the freedoms and the liberties we enjoyed in our own God-given gifts, and we trusted that our children's and our grandchildren's lives would be filled with even greater possibilities. And yet people don't trust that anymore. I have 2 granddaughters, and current course and speed, I don't know that they will have the possibilities that I've enjoyed. In fact, people have this sense of disquiet for a reason. So we now are tangling people's lives up in webs of dependence. Instead of saying to people, you have God-given gifts, you can live a life of dignity, purpose, and meaning, we're going to help you move forward in your life. No, we're tangling people's lives up in these webs of dependence that encourage them not to move forward with their lives, but encourage them to fall back. We now are destroying more businesses than we're creating for the first time in U.S. history. Think about that. We're destroying more businesses than we are creating. And it's not the big businesses we're destroying. Not at all. In fact, big business is getting even bigger. It's the little businesses we're destroying. So it's the family-owned businesses, the small businesses, the community-based businesses. And that matters because it's those small businesses, like the 9-person real estate firm that I started having, or the businesses that have grown up in your communities. They create 2/3 of the new jobs in this country, and they employ half the people. So when we're crushing the small, when we're crushing the powerless, when we're crushing those who don't have the resources or the power to influence what's going on in Washington, we're crushing possibilities for all kinds of people. The truth is, crony capitalism is alive and well. What's crony capitalism? Crony capitalism exists when big business and big influence and big government all get together. And I know as the chief executive of a $90 billion firm, that's how big Hewlett-Packard was when I left it. If I didn't like something going on in Washington, I could hire lawyers, accountants, lobbyists, but the 9-person real estate firm can't. So every time we pass a new regulation in Washington, D.C., or a new law that makes government bigger and more complicated, what happens? The big get bigger, the small get crushed. Dodd-Frank, remember, was supposed to be a response to the financial crisis. Well, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac haven't been reformed, but 10 banks too big to fail have become 5 banks too big to fail. and 3,000 community banks have gone out of business because they're not strong enough to deal with this. Or Obamacare, another hugely complicated piece of government. The law itself is longer than a Harry Potter novel, not nearly as interesting. Nobody read it. It's accompanied by 40,000 pages worth of regulation. It's so complicated. Nobody knows what's in it, but the effect of it is hospitals are consolidating, drug companies are consolidating, insurance companies are consolidating. And have you seen the stats on Obamacare lately? Emergency room visits are up, health insurance premiums are up, the number of hospitals in network is down, the number of doctors who will take Medicare and Medi-Cal is down. We have a lot of problems in this country. We have a lot of wounds. But every one of those problems can be solved. Every one of those wounds is self-inflicted. Because we have the only thing we really need to fix every problem. We have limitless potential of the American people. But what is happening now is the potential of this nation literally is being crushed by the weight, the power, the cost, the complexity, the ineptitude, the corruption of the federal government. And if you think those words are too strong, consider some of this data. How many of you here are veterans? Thank you for your service. How long has the Veterans Administration been a scandal? Not in the last couple months, forever. Forever. Has it gotten fixed? No. When the American people got outraged by the scandal of wait times in Arizona, they put a lot of pressure on their elected officials, and guess what happened? In 3 short weeks, Congress had passed a bipartisan bill. President Obama signed it into law that said, you know what? We can fire the top 400 senior executives in the VA if they don't do their jobs. Pretty good idea. Maybe we should apply it to the whole government. But the truth is, only one person's been fired at the VA, and reform really hasn't happened, and nothing's really gotten any better. The 70,000-page tax code we had last time I was up here in New Hampshire, which was a couple weeks ago, I had 4 business people tell me they couldn't finish their tax returns on time because they didn't understand them anymore. Their accountants didn't understand them anymore. Remember when the IRS said they couldn't answer our phone calls this tax season because they didn't have enough money? Really? Really? The government can never do anything unless it asks for more money. And yet, the truth is, every government agency has gotten bigger and bigger under Republicans and Democrats alike for almost 50 years. And every year we get these reports of outrage. You know, every year there's a report that outlines hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud, waste, abuse, corruption in the federal government. What happens? Nothing. About every 4 months, we get yet another Inspector General report that tells us that you can be a federal government employee. You can sit at your desk and watch pornography all day long and earn the same paid pension and benefits as someone trying to do a good job. What happens? Nothing. Why are we settling for this? The fact that we have come to settle for a government that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that size and power and complexity are not benign. They are crushing the potential of this nation. You see it. You see it in people's lives. You see it in the fact that small businesses are dying. You see it in the lowest labor participation rates in decades. You see it in millions of people not working as many hours as they'd like or finding the jobs they need. Why are we settling for this? It reminds me of the difference between management and leadership. I said we have everything we need to solve every problem we do. But what are we missing? We're missing leadership. I said there's a difference between management and leadership. There is. You know what management is? Management is doing the best you can within the status quo. Managers operate within the system. We've got a lot of managers in business. We've got a lot of managers in life. We've got a lot of managers in politics. Leaders do not accept the system just because it's been that way for a long time. Leaders challenge the system. In fact, a leader's job is to challenge the status quo. And we need a leader in the Oval Office now that knows that their job is to challenge the status quo in Washington. Leadership is also not about position, power, title. It's not about highest calling of leadership is to unlock potential in others. Whether you do that as a teacher, a parent, a community leader, a Republican leader, or a president of the United States, the highest calling of a leader is to unlock potential in others. And now we need a leader in the White House who understands that their job in 2016 is to unlock the potential of this nation so that we can solve our problems and heal our wounds and restore possibilities in every American's life. And nowhere is leadership more missing than in the world today. You know, the truth is, the world's a very dangerous and a tragic place when we are not leading. That doesn't mean we rush off to war, but it does mean we have to have the moral clarity and the courage to confront our adversaries and stand with our allies. I know more world leaders on the stage today than anyone else running, with the possible exception of Hillary Clinton. Only I didn't do photo ops with any of them. I had private meetings where I discussed business, or education, or charity, or policy. I've sat one-on-one with Vladimir Putin, with Bibi Netanyahu, with the Chinese leadership, with leaders in the Arab Middle East, with leaders in Africa, Latin America, and Europe. And when you meet these leaders, and when you know how the world operates, and who's in the world, you also know that when we fail to confront our adversaries over and over again, our adversaries conclude that they can do what they want. So we're failing to confront Vladimir Putin, and he is a man, having met him, who lusts for power. And so we don't have to rush off to war to confront him, but we should rebuild the Sixth Fleet, we should rebuild the missile defense program, we should conduct regular military exercises in the Baltic states, and we should arm the Ukrainians. Every single one of those things. Our president admitted yesterday, or the day before, that he doesn't have a strategy to deal with ISIS. And yet our Arab allies in the Middle East know that ISIS is their fight, and they are asking for leadership and support from us to fight them. They do not want us to put thousands of boots on the ground again, but our allies have asked us for very specific things. King Abdullah of Jordan, a man I've also known a long time. Do you remember when the Jordanian pilot was burned alive? He was here in this country. And he was asking us for bombs and material to support his Air Force. We have not provided it. The Kurds have asked us to arm them for 3 years. We are not doing so. The Egyptians have asked us to provide intelligence. The Bahrainis, the Qataris, the Saudis, all of these allies know this is their fight, but they expect support from us. And so instead of having a summit in Camp David to try and talk these same allies into a very bad deal with Iran, I would hold a summit in Camp David to talk to these allies about what they need from us to fight ISIS. In addition to getting our out-of-control government bureaucracy under control so that we lift its weight off the backs of this nation, in addition to reforming these webs of dependence we woven around people's lives, in addition to getting the economy going and growing again, we need to reset foreign policy. And I don't mean with a gimmicky red button. I mean by actually taking action that restore our allies' faith in us and remind our adversaries that they need to fear us. And so, my first day in the Oval Office, I'll make 2 phone calls. Phone call number 1 to Bibi Netanyahu, a man I have also known for a very long time. And I will phone Bibi Netanyahu to reassure him that this nation will always stand with the state of Israel, but also to tell our other allies that we will stand with them, because all of our allies all around the world are watching how we treat Israel. And when we treat Israel's leadership with disrespect, our allies worry about how valuable their friendship is with us. And the other phone call I would make is to the supreme leader of Iran. He might not take the phone call, but he would get the message. And the message is this: until and unless you are willing to open every nuclear facility you have, every nuclear enrichment facility you have, to full and unfettered and anytime, anywhere inspections, we will exact the most punishing financial sanctions we can and make it as difficult as possible for you to move money around the global financial system. We don't need anyone's permission to do that, and we need to do it. And once again, when we confront Iran, others will realize that we are prepared to confront them as well, whether it is China, that is now increasingly becoming an adversary, or anyone else in the world. I said that leadership's job is to challenge the status quo, and it is. You know, I led HP through a very difficult time. 6 years of the worst technology recession post 9/11, dot-com bust, and in that 6-year period, we doubled the size of the company to $90 billion. We took the growth rate to 5 times what it had been at the beginning of that period, despite difficult times. We quadrupled cash flow, we tripled innovation to 11 patents a day. We went from lagging behind to leading in every product category and every market segment. And at the end of that 6-year period, I got fired in a boardroom brawl that played out over 2 weeks, which is a reminder that when you lead, when you challenge the status quo, you make enemies. It's part of what happens. But nevertheless, we need leadership now in the White House. You know, Tony very nicely referenced my press conference. I've held many press conferences. I've been asked loads of questions by the media since I declared my candidacy, probably over 500 now. And I've gotten asked a lot of really interesting questions. One of the questions that was most interesting is one that I was asked here in New Hampshire by a national television reporter. And the question was, did I believe that a woman's hormones prevented her from serving in the Oval Office? So, ladies, this is a little test. Can you think of a single instance in which a man's judgment was clouded by hormones? Hillary Clinton must not be president of these United States. Not because she's a woman. Hillary Clinton must not be president of these United States because she is not trustworthy and she lacks a track record of leadership. We need somebody in the Oval Office now who understands the economy and how it actually works and how to get it back on track. We need somebody in the White House who understands how the world works and who's in it and how they operate. We need somebody in the White House who understands how bureaucracies work, because our government has become one giant, bloated, unaccountable bureaucracy that has forgotten who it is there to serve and forgotten as well who is paying for it. We need somebody in the White House who understands technology, because technology is a tool to transform bureaucracies, but also to re-engage people in the process of their government, which we must do. And finally, we need someone in the White House who understands what leadership is, at its highest callings to challenge the status quo in order to unlock potential in others, and that sometimes leadership requires tough calls in tough times with high stakes for which you are prepared to be held accountable. As we think about this pivotal point in our nation's history, and a pivotal election as well, let us make no mistake, this will be a fight. And what I am fighting for, I believe what you are fighting for, is a vision of America that I think is best symbolized by two of the most powerful symbols of our beautiful democracy, Lady Liberty and Lady Justice. So picture in your mind Lady Liberty for a moment. She stands tall and strong. She is clear-eyed and resolute. She does not shield her eyes from the realities of the world, but she faces outward into the world, which is the way America must always face. And she holds her torch high, because she knows she is a beacon of hope in a very troubled world. And Lady Justice, she holds a sword in one hand, because she's a fighter. She's a warrior for the values and the principles that have made this nation great. She holds a scale in the other hand. And I believe she tells us with that scale that we are all equal in the eyes of God. Every one of us has God-given gifts, and so we must also always be equal in the eyes of the law and government, powerful and powerless alike. And she wears a blindfold. And I think with that blindfold, she is saying to us that here in this nation, in this, the 21st century, when we have so many tools at our disposal, here in this nation, every American's life must be filled with the possibilities that come from their God-given gifts, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so very much.
So of course
The truth is that in both cases, we will have to go as far as we have to go. On the other hand, President Obama has taken off the table so many things that would be helpful. Let's just talk about Iran for a moment. You heard that one of the first phone calls I would make is to the Supreme Leader of Iran, but let's think about how this negotiation has gone so far. I haven't ever negotiated a nuclear deal, but I've negotiated a lot of deals, big deals. And I'll tell you, there's some cardinal rules of deal making. Rule number one, know your goals. And don't agree to a deal that doesn't achieve your goals. Right now, we have not achieved a single goal that President Obama laid out when he started this negotiation. Not a single nuclear facility will be dismantled. Not one of 19,000 centrifuges will stop spinning. We now don't really know how long it's going to take for Iran to get a nuclear weapon, but it's clear everyone thinks they're going to get one at some period. And oh, by the way, they used to agree to things like shipping their enriched uranium out of the country. Remember that? They said, oh yeah, we'll send it to Russia. No, they don't agree to that anymore. Rule number two, walk away from the table. At some point, to get a good deal, you've got to walk away from the table so that the person on the other side of the table knows you're serious about hitting your goals. We never walked away from the table. Rule number three, the most important rule of all, never celebrate a deal until you have the deal you want. So when this president walks into the Rose Garden and celebrates a historic framework agreement before we ever have a legal agreement, what did the Iranians conclude? We got it. He's committed publicly to this deal. And what you've seen happen ever since he walked into the Rose Garden is the Iranians are renegotiating the deal. So it's better for them and worse for us. The Iranians have had a long-term strategy to destabilize the region and to get a nuclear weapon, which is why we must put as much pressure on their economy as possible until we understand what's going on in their country. That will slow them down, and it's also why we should have taken the advice of someone like General James Mattis, who commanded ground forces in the Middle East until 2012 or 13. He provided a whole set of recommendations to the President of the United States. The President took none of them. ISIS, President Obama is always saying, if you don't agree with what I'm doing, the only option is to go to war, tens of thousands of boots on the ground. That's not true. Our allies have given us a lot of options, many of which I talked about. Our allies have given us many options, and we have not chosen to exercise a single one. So let's do the things that we know are going to make a difference and see how much difference it makes. I think it would. But ISIS is evil. They must be defeated. And Iran cannot be permitted to gain a nuclear weapon, period.
Governor in Florida. And he said, and I feel kind of strange saying this to you right now, he said, and points a very strong finger at Saudi Arabia. They're calling for the declassification of these pages. And everyone on the stage had read them and said there's nothing in it that touches on our national security. Ex-CIA heads have called for their declassification. Republicans and Democrats that ran that 9/11 Commission study have all called for their declassification and said, frankly, there was nothing in it that ever should have been classified. I know you said that you've spoken to people in Saudi Arabia. You referred to them as our ally. I may have been sleep better at night hearing people tell me that the attack couldn't have happened but for the money, and we have not traced where the money came from. And the victims of 9/11 were on the stage asking for those pages to be released so that they can use it in their lawsuit against the Saudi Arabian government.
And your question is?
Would you join us in asking the people in the House and in the Senate to walk down the stairs in the basement and take a half an hour of their lives and read the 28 pages and see if they touch on our national security and if they maybe point to something that needs to be investigated?
Well, first, if the facts are as described,
then if people who are in charge of protecting our national security, and by the way, members of Congress don't declassify things. It's not their job, but they can certainly ask for things to be declassified. So if the facts are as you describe them, and people have said there's nothing classified in here, declassify them, then of course I would support that. By the way, there's a lot of stuff that we're told is classified that others say are not classified, like Hillary Clinton's emails, for example. I mean, just to pick something. Well, one of the reasons that it's important for government to be as transparent as possible, and important for people who serve in government or want to serve in government, like Hillary Clinton, to be as transparent as possible, is because without transparency, what we don't know becomes a big, bad, scary thing. Sometimes it actually is a big, bad, scary thing, and we need to know it. And sometimes we just don't know, so we imagine something bad. I had the privilege, and it was a privilege, of chairing the advisory board of the Central Intelligence Agency for several years. I advised 2 secretaries of defense, a secretary of state, a secretary of homeland security. I know the CIA people and the NSA people well, and the vast, vast majority of them are fine people who are trying to keep this nation safe. But when I chaired that advisory board, I advised the CIA and the NSA to be as transparent as absolutely possible, without putting our nation's security at risk, without revealing things that we cannot reveal. To be as transparent as possible, because without transparency, the American people cannot support the mission. And so yes, where we are not truly in a position where we must protect information, then we should declassify that information. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yes, I was wondering if you're going to help fight for freedoms and liberty.
well, I hope you heard that in all my remarks.
Yes, sir. You know, how many of you have ever worked for a bureaucracy? Probably a lot of you, probably more than realize, you know. By the way, you experience a democracy every time you go to the DMV or you go through the TSA or what happens in bureaucracies? This is relevant to your question. A bureaucracy is a rules-based, process-intensive, hierarchical organization. And in a bureaucracy, employees get the message really quickly. Head down. Follow the rules. Don't use your judgment. Don't be creative. Don't rock the boat. For heaven's sakes, don't try and solve the problem. If you don't know how to solve it, send it up the chain, right? I mean, that's what happens. And what happens, not because the people are bad, but what happens in the bureaucratic system is over time, the system takes over. The system takes over and rules are substituted for judgment. And suddenly, as the system takes over, people start to jealously guard their turf. The internal battles become more important than serving people who are supposed to be served by the bureaucracy. It's what happens in every bureaucracy. I don't care if the bureaucracy is government or business or charity, it's the nature of bureaucracies. So why do I say, in order to restore our liberties and freedoms, in order to get our economy going and growing again, in order to restore entrepreneurial and innovative spirit, in order to say to people, you have gifts, you can live a life of dignity and purpose and meaning, we have to lift the weight of this government off this nation, because bureaucracies are crushing all those things. And so we got to get those bureaucracies under control. And that means government needs to spend less, not the same as. We can't just argue about the rate of increase every year, which is what we've been doing for 50 years. We actually have to justify every single program, eliminate those that don't work. And by the way, there are plenty. We have to hold agencies accountable for their performance. All of that has to happen. It's not just because we can't afford a bloated bureaucracy that isn't doing its job. It's also because the weight of that bureaucracy is crushing the freedoms and the liberties and the spirit that we need to keep this economy going and to make this our greatest I'm not sure everyone could hear what the lady said. She said, how do we get the message out that Republicans care about people? She has many friends who are Democrats, and they say when they start to talk about politics, well, at least we care about people. So I would say two things. First, I think tone matters. Tone matters in conversation. And so it is very important that, I won't speak for anyone but myself, but I think it's very important that we are never judgmental of others, that we are always empathetic, that we're not angry, that we're not vitriolic, that we're not argumentative, that we're focused on finding common ground, not sacrificing our principles, finding common ground and solving problems. Tone matters. Because a lot of times people feel as though we're being judgmental or harsh. Secondly, I would say, one of the things that I think this election is a fight over is whether or not we actually believe that everyone has God-given gifts. I'll tell you why I'm a conservative. Because I know no one of us is any better than any other one of us. I know every one of us can face tough times. I battled cancer. I needed a lot of helping hands. When I was a secretary, I needed somebody to take a chance on me. When we lost our daughter to the demons of addiction, we needed a lot of people to care for us. Every one of us can fall upon hard times, and every one of us needs to be lifted up sometimes. And yes, we have to be a society that cares for everyone. But the reason I say the fight is about, do we really believe that everyone has God-given gifts? Here's what the head of the teachers union in Chicago said one day during a strike. The issue was teacher accountability. And she took to the microphones and she said, we cannot be held accountable for the performance of students in our classroom because too many of them are poor and come from broken families. So what was she saying? If you're poor and you come from a broken family, you can't learn, so it's not our job to teach you. That, ladies and gentlemen, was someone who didn't believe that everyone has God-given gifts. Or what happens when liberals say, we're going to shut down charter schools, we're going to shut down vouchers, we're going to not let parents choose the way their children are educated? What are they doing? They're cutting off a child's chance. I believe there are, unfortunately, people in the left wing of the Democrat Party who actually don't believe that we are all equal. I think they believe some are smarter than others, some are better than others, so some of us are going to take care of others. That is not what I believe. So a helping hand, you bet. Somebody to take a chance on you, you bet. But I start from the proposition that every single life has God-given gifts. Everyone has potential. And it is our opportunity, our privilege as a nation to build a place where everyone has a chance to fulfill that potential. Yes, ma'am.
A question about the debates coming up. Your message is fabulous. Everybody that's here is really interested in what you have to say. You're out going to the states. And I know you said when people ask you how are you going to get into the debates, you said, say, I plan to be there. How can we help you get there? What can we do other than, you know, with a phone call for the dollar? What can we do to make sure you're on that stage and you can get out your message to more than those of us right now?
Well, what a great question. Thank you. Could everybody hear that one?
Look, I am not as well known as a lot of these candidates because I haven't been in politics all my life. So a lot of people don't know who I am. In New Hampshire, I looked at a poll recently and only 4%, this was several weeks ago, but only 4% of Republican primary voters had ever heard of me. Nevertheless, I was at 2% of the polls. A lot of headroom. I don't have as much money as a lot of these candidates because I haven't had years to build up email lists and loyalty to my family and all the rest of it. So I'm not going to have as much name ID and I'm not going to have as much money. But here's what you can do. Yes, we need the fuel. If you want to donate to our campaign, I'll be deeply grateful. Carly for president. Talk to your friends. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your colleagues. New Hampshire is a place that isn't swayed by polls or money. You're people who are swayed by who do I think this candidate is and what kind of leader do I think they would be and do I trust them? debates because I can see what's happening out there, and it's being reflected in the polls little by little. But it takes hard work every day. I promise you this, I'm not going to falter. I will not falter. I will not run away from this fight. But I need your help. I absolutely need your help. So fuel me, talk about me, support me. And if you do your job, I'll do my job. Thank you. I can feel a gentle look. You, sir, are the last question. No pressure now.
Very well, thank you very much. I own a small business here, and I repair automobiles. And most of the parts that I buy are made in China or Mexico or some other country. Very little of the things that I buy are made in America. I look through catalogs of high-tech things, and they're real cool, but none of them are made in America. What do you have as a plan to either increase prices for those to come back into the country or to create the jobs in this country to manufacture so we can buy them?
Well, it's a wonderful last question. Thank you. And I mentioned my husband started out as a tow truck driver in a family-owned auto body shop, and he still loves being in a body shop, so maybe he'll visit you when he comes up here in New Hampshire. He's a pretty good mechanic, too, I have to say. We need to understand that in the 21st century, any job can go anywhere, so therefore we have to fight. We have to fight for every job. And what does that mean? What does that mean? It means we have to have the best educated workforce in the world. That's why how we educate both children and adults matters. We can't leave able-bodied adults on the sidelines. We need to retrain them. So as much as we talk about rebuilding our roads and our bridges, which is very important, we need to be retraining America as well as educating America. Secondly, what does fighting for every job mean? We need to make sure that we are energy independent, not just because that creates jobs, but because the more energy we produce here, while being good conservationists of the planet, and both are possible, the more energy we produce here, the lower the prices of energy are here. And when energy prices are lower, we attract jobs. Third, we cannot have the highest tax rate in the world on business. We're shooting ourselves in the foot when we do that. So we need to lower rates on everyone, not just businesses, but we have to have a competitive tax rate. We tax businesses twice, once over there, once here. It's why businesses have parked so much cash overseas. And finally, we need to restore the innovative and entrepreneurial spirit of this nation. When you ask innovators and entrepreneurs, and I've met a lot of great manufacturers in New Hampshire, by the way, but when you ask innovators and entrepreneurs if things are getting easier for them or harder, what do you suppose they answer? Every one of them says it's harder and harder and harder. All this regulation, all this complexity of the tax code. So we have to start with a point of view that says we have the most productive people in the world. We have the best talent in the world. We should be leading in every single industry in this 21st century. So now let's go fight for the jobs. We know how to do that because others have fought and taken our jobs away from us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for being here, and thanks for helping.
60? We got a picture with 60. We got a picture on there.
What's the screen of that drawing?
Yeah. I mean, I knew him, but yes, it was. Yes, very sure. Yes, I'll be back in July for a week. So.
Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, what a all right, the only one who's not on the stage, can I have a picture? All right. Who's got a camera here? All right, straight in. There we go. We go, folks. Where are we looking here? We got, all right, okay. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you. Who's the candidate that
Show me.